exploitation, outright hysteria, and fabrication. It's yet another week in the Democratic 2020 presidential campaign season. I need a drink. Over the weekend in Colorado, at a Mayor Pete Buttigieg Mayor Butt gig, you know, the guy from South Bendover, Indiana, held a rally, an event. Again, he wants you to think that he's drawing the same kind of crowds and excitement that Donald Trump is. This is Donald Trump who, in India, just 24 hours ago, drew 120,000 people inside the stadium, another 250,000 people outside the stadium, and when he came to the platform, they all sang Macho Man. Oh, baby, can you imagine Donald Trump on the platform with Mayor Pete? In fact, Rush Limbaugh asked this question and got eviscerated by the lying legacy corporate corrupt mainstream propaganda tool known as the media.
Okay, how's this going to 37-year-old gay guy kissing his husband on stage next to Mr. Man Donald Trump? What's going to happen there? And they got to be looking at that, and they've got to be saying that despite all the great progress and despite all the great wokeness and despite all the great ground that's been covered, America's still not ready to elect a gay guy kissing his husband on the debate stage president.
Well, Mayor Pete did something very touching at his Colorado campaign rally. He helped a 9-year-old boy come out of the closet.
The next question comes from Zachary, age 9.
Oh, wow.
And this is a really touching question. He says, "Thank you for being so brave. Would you help me tell the world I'm gay too? I want to be brave like you."
Wow. I don't think you need a lot of advice from me on bravery. You seem pretty strong. And to see you willing to come to terms with who you are in a room full of 1,000 people, thousands of people you've never met, that's really something.
Notice what he says to this kid. You're so brave to do this in front of thousands of people. His campaign event was held, and it looked like a high school gymnasium when they panned the crowd for this kid to come forward. There were maybe 1,000 people there. And that's if you're counting generously. Like maybe other people in the building and other parts of the building doing other things. But to just have to lie and say, we have thousands of people here. No, you don't. I'm not going to deal with the sexuality of this young man. This is not an attack on a 9-year-old. I'm not CNN. I don't go after kids. This is something that this boy and his parents, this is something they need to deal with. But I am going to talk about it from this standpoint. The Democrats, the liberals, the lib-loons, the libtards are exploiting a child. Outright exploiting him. What was it we heard from the media and from individuals, including Chris Cuomo, otherwise known as Fredo, over there at CNN? Why, when they were talking about these Covington kids and, mocking the old Indian who turned out to be a Vietnam War vet and a hero. No, he wasn't a Vietnam hero. In fact, he never left the States. He basically cleaned latrines at some base somewhere. And the old Indian was not trying to bring peace to the situation. He was trying to antagonize those boys, those young men from Covington Catholic High School, and they didn't give in to it. But what were we told by Chris Cuomo? What were we told by Don Lemonhead? Why, How dare those school officials exploit those children for political purposes? If the leaders of that school are pro-life, it doesn't mean they have to shove it down the throats of the kids. But yet now here we have a 9-year-old who is coming out, and we have the liberal left is completely giddy about being able to exploit this young man for political expediency. So which is it? Why is it horrible if there are Christians who will take their children with them to picket and protest an abortion clinic? That's awful. That's vile. But people marching for the right for a woman to choose will wear t-shirts that say, "I'm proud of my abortion," while they're also holding on to their 3-year-old child that they did choose to give life to. That's not exploiting? All of these kids that were allowed to skip school to be part of National The World Is on Fire and We're Gonna Melt Day, and Greta Thunberg, who basically now is, I guess, a school dropout while she travels the world lecturing the rest of us on why we should do without fossil fuel, why if she can get around the world in a solar-powered yacht, which is really a sailboat, a solar-powered yacht, why we don't need to be flying, we don't need to have modern conveniences, yet as she uses technology, you know, like YouTube and the internet to get her message out, gee, all of that requires this thing called energy. All this energy supposedly contributes to climate change. You know, how come it is the kids on the left, they're valiant, they're champions, they're brave, they're warriors. But if kids on the right wear a Make America hat, great again, to school, they get expelled. They get brought into the principal's office and told that they're triggering hate. If a young person in a public school stands up and defends creation over evolution, he has to fail the class. His parents are told, basically, if those are your views, get your kid out of here, homeschool him, take him to a parochial school. But the liberal left, it's perfectly okay for Pedo Pete to exploit a 9-year-old in front of thousands. Well, it's millions now because of the internet and the Puff Huffington Post and The Hill and everybody else who's got it all over YouTube. Again, the flaming double standard hypocrisy. And here we go. It's another election cycle. That said, watch out for those memes. You are being programmed by the Russians.
The meme wars, and this, for folks who don't know, is the new thing that's going to be really driving a lot of narratives and conversation and voter suppression efforts to some extent in this upcoming election. How is it weaponized to achieve a political end, and what are those political ends that we've seen in recent months?
Well, memes use humor to introduce new ideas, and often these ideas can be very insidious and problematic. Memes in 2016 were used throughout Facebook and Instagram to spread misinformation. So, you know, basically Russian interference.
One of the things that's so interesting, and I think sinister about this stuff, is that it really does have the impact of trying to increase cynicism and apathy.
So memes are Russian propaganda. Well, now wait a minute, CNN. Let's back the tape up, because didn't you just kind of allude to over the weekend that Putin was pulling the strings for Bernie Sanders? Well, which is it? Is he in bed with Donald Trump, or is he in bed with Bernie Sanders? Because let's get real. Donald Trump and Bernie Sanders are at polar opposite ends of the spectrum when it comes to political ideology. Now, the truth be told, if the Russians actually are helping Bernie, no one cares at this point, because you so overplayed and overhyped and lied and pushed this whole Russia narrative on Donald Trump when none of it was true. Nobody is paying attention. And it makes now the Democratic Party and the complicit media, it makes you all look like functional morons that what? Anytime there's a candidate that gains any kind of steam or traction over the establishment, The one that we have picked out for you, the candidate that you will vote for, and you will like it. You will vote for Joe Biden. Now because the libloons and the radicals that you have modeled and coddled and welcomed into the Democratic Party over the years, the anarchists, the anti-Americans, the flag burners, the people that use the Constitution as toilet paper, now all of a sudden that they have found their voice and their guy, and they're rising up en masse, and now they want their guy, all of a sudden now that's Russian propaganda. It just can't be funny. So, but let me get it straight. If the Russians are helping Bernie, then why are there memes against Bernie? Actually, my favorite new meme of the political season right now is the one that I put up on our station Facebook page. My initials are BS for a reason. I mean, come on, that's just stinking funny right there. But it's always in totalitarian, very dictatorial, oppressive governmental regimes where you can get in trouble for things like, that joke is not funny. The suppression of speech, the suppression of expression is what happens in places like Russia, third world dictatorships. And so now we have CNN actually arguing that if the approved elite do not find something funny, it's obviously wrong, and it must go away. It must be done away with because you're too stupid to read a meme and not realize the Kremlin is programming you. And what is it that the mainstream media wants us to embrace and accept? Why either Michael Bloomberg or Joe Biden ought to be the next presidente of these United States. We've done a lot to expose Mike Bloomberg over the past couple of days, so I'm not going to talk about him right now. He was so wretched in the last debate that he made Joe Biden look good. I mean, Joe Biden actually got a little bit excited to be able to get combative with Mike Bloomberg. It's the most excited we've seen Joe Biden. In fact, it's got him so revved up that he's down in the Carolinas, pleading for the black vote by lying. Yes, Joe Biden, lying about his own history with black apartheid.
This day, 30 years ago, Nelson Mandela walked out of prison and entered into discussions about apartheid. I had the great honor of meeting him. I had the great honor of being arrested with our UN ambassador on the streets of Soweto trying to get to see him on Robbins Island.
Well, that supposedly happened in 2007. Yet in a memoir that Joe Biden happened to release that same year, he failed to mention this story. And yet he's using it now on the campaign trail. It's part of his stump speech. Well, some members of the media actually did this random act of journalism, and they tracked down some of the people that were actually with Joe Biden on this particular trip. And Shazam, Batman, nobody seems to remember Joe or the ambassador being arrested for trying to get to see Nelson Mandela. Joe, say it ain't so. You wouldn't make up your own history, would you?
All these stories are quite interesting because all these fantasies of him want to place him at the center of world events. It's like when Amy Klobuchar ran into trouble the other night for forgetting the name of the Mexican president, and Joe Biden immediately said, I'm the only person on this stage who has met the guy who was the Mexican president, and I met whoever it was who was the Mexican president before that, and the guy who was the Mexican president who was the guy before the Mexican president. It is a slightly perplexing thing that an irrelevant man wants to place himself at the center of world historical events. And in some subtle way, these pitiful fantasies actually tell you why he's running for president.
Joe Biden. Forrest Gump? Could there be a similarity there? I think so. And it explains a lot, especially when Mark Stein said, this reveals now why Joe wants to be president. Yes, because he has led an absolutely purposeless, meaningless life. So now, thanks to the inspiration of his childhood sweetheart, Jenny, he has decided he needs to run for president. Run, Joe, run.
Run, Joe, run. Come back here, you.
Well, that's it for today's rant. Hey, give us a thumbs up. Make sure you spread this. We were gaining subscriptions, then we plateaued, then we were losing again. YouTube keeps shadow banning us, and every time they forget to shadow ban us, this channel just explodes and goes viral, and then immediately YouTube comes in and clamps down. So check your subscription, make sure you're still subscribed, smack the bell to get notification of my rants, check the word all so that you actually get notification of my rants, and help me spread the word so that we can break the YouTube shadow ban and get the word out that this channel is here. Thank you.